Hello, everyone joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Thank you for joining. Let's give it one. People are still joining. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're thrilled to have everyone here today. I'm just watching the participant number till it stops going up, which is great that it is going up. I'm going to wait 10, 15 more seconds and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and get started since we're at 8:33. Once again, hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's webinar. I'm Marcy Levy, Global Lead for Adolescents at UNICEF, and I'm honored to be your host for today's session. I'd love to ask everyone to take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. You can put name and where you're calling in from, so we can get a sense of who's here today in this launch. So we're so excited, just really so excited to officially launch a new resource designed to support the mental health and psychosocial well-being of young changemakers. As we all know, young people leading social change navigate intense pressures, high expectations, and unique emotional challenges. Yet they're rarely offered the tools or support they need to sustain their well-being in their work. And that's why we're so thrilled to be here today on a product that's been about 6 years in the making with many young people from around the world, and introduce to you the supporting the mental health and social psycho well-being of young changemakers, which includes a facilitator's guide, slides, and a participant workbook. This is a comprehensive training package. It's designed to equip skilled facilitators, both adult and youth facilitators, with everything they need to deliver impactful online sessions for young changemakers. Whether you're a youth worker, an educator, a facilitator, an advocate, a teacher, your role in creating safe, supportive spaces for young people is just so vital, and we hope this resource will help you in that mission. It's really a roadmap to help young people access the supports and thrive along their changemaker journeys. So in today's session, we'll walk you through the structure and the content of the resource, highlight key features, and explore how to use it to lead your own training or integrate this into your work with young people or support partners or governments to do so. We'll hear from some of the contributors behind this resource, some of the early users, and young people themselves on why this matters. As we go along, please feel free to put questions in the chat for us. We'll try to leave time at the end to answer some of these questions live, and this will also help inform us of the type of questions and content we need to include on our website to make sure those who access this resource get the answers they need. So again, thank you so much for joining us and for being part of this growing, exciting, loud, positive movement to center youth well-being in, center well-being in youth leadership. So let's get started. Yasmin, I hope you're able to, I know you had a internet connectivity problem, but hopefully you're here. Let me turn the floor over to Yasmin Hack, the Director of Health at UNICEF. So Yasmin, over to you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Can you hear me okay? I just want to take a check.
Perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So it's really an honor for me to be joining this exciting launch today. And it's a launch that develops a resource or that is introducing that resource that is so importantly being developed with young people for them, for supporting their mental health and psychosocial well-being of the young change makers. I really see it as a really meaningful milestone as in this journey that we have to make accessible and to sustain youth leadership, advocacy, and impact, because it's a tool that it's been lacking sorely. And it's one that really, if we look at the need for us to invest in resources like this, we've really taken time to do it. But I'm sure that because the young people who are at the forefront of driving change around health, climate, and gender equality see this as a tool that they need, see this as a tool that helps them carry the weight of stress, uncertainty, social pressure, often without the support they need to take care of themselves along their way. Especially when we talk about gender equality and social justice, these are areas that really go to the core of our being, and it really affects us in many ways that we don't even realize at the time. So when we see this happening and when we see the need for it, that's where the absolute essential toolkit on supporting mental health and psychosocial well-being of young change makers was developed. It has been based on the WHO UNICEF Helping Adolescents Thrive tools. And it's a training kit that can be used by facilitators who work with adolescents, with youth advocates, to help build mental and health literacy and key skills like emotional regulation, stress management, cultivating supportive relationships, communicating effectively, setting boundaries, and building resilience. You know, when I was a young person, it was taken for granted. You just go out and you do it. But we've come to realize that it's not enough to just have the confidence to go ahead. We do need these tools to help us along the way if we are to be more effective and to speak to the world community as we challenge to do so. Young people have, of course, importantly helped to shape the design and content of the training toolkit to ensure its relevance, its accessibility, and responsiveness to the realities that they themselves face. At UNICEF, as you know, we see mental health as being central add-on, but it's really, we see it as a foundation for the individual, for the family, and for community well-being. Caring for our own mental health literacy, for our own mental health is really crucial. It's not a luxury or a nice to have. It's really a tool which helps us participate meaningfully, to contribute to stronger communities and to sustain the energy that we need to sustain this huge change that we're trying to drive over time. To the young change makers here today, first of all, congratulations. Thank you for your leadership, your honesty, and your vision. To the UNICEF, ADAPT, mental health, and adolescent health teams, I thank you for really taking heed and working with young people for their meaningful participation. This is such a great example of what meaningful participation is about. And for those who are working with young people around the world, we really hope that this resource helps you in your efforts to create safe, empowering spaces where young change makers can thrive in every community. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing the voices and the experiences that I shared today. Really a privilege to be here. Back to you, Marcy.
Thank you so much, Yasmin, for those powerful and heartfelt words. We really appreciate hearing from you, and especially appreciate the thanks to all changemakers around the world doing incredible work all the time. Now I'd like to turn the floor over to a young changemaker from Turks and Caicos, the incredible Zaria Ingram. Zaria, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to hearing from you and to hearing about your perspectives on mental health for young change makers. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Marcy, and good morning, everyone. My name is Zaria Ingham, and I'm based in the beautiful Turks and Caicos Islands. I've spent this past several years working in youth advocacy, both nationally and regionally, through roles such as a Commonwealth Youth Parliamentarian, CARICOM Youth Ambassador, and a former Junior Minister of Tourism. And I'm also privileged to join the first cohort of brilliant young change makers throughout the Caribbean region in becoming a champion trainer in facilitating the UNICEF Youth Advocacy Guide. So to sum it up, I've had the privilege of working across the Caribbean as a youth advocate, championing civic engagement, climate action, and youth participation in decision-making. But the heart of my change making has always been rooted in care, especially mental care for young people leading the charge. As we just commemorated Emancipation Day on August 1st across the Caribbean region, I have been deeply reflecting on the connections between our history and our present mental health realities. The legacy of colonialism didn't just leave physical scars, but it passed down emotional and psychological trauma through our DNA and through generations of social conditioning. Many of the coping habits that we've inherited that is also reflected globally, like suppressing your emotions or pushing through without rest, or even normalizing struggling in silence. They may have helped us survive back then, but today they often leave us mentally unsafe. And so when you layer that with the immense pressures of our collective generation faces, including constant information overload, rapidly shifting cultural norms, and navigating identity and purpose in a fast changing environment, it's no wonder why so many young change makers feel overwhelmed. Yes, we are resilient, and I love that about us. But that resilience must be supported by the right tools, the right systems, and the right care to be sustainable. And that is why this UNICEF training toolkit on supporting the mental health and psychosocial well-being of young changemakers that is being launched today is so powerful. As someone who worked with 40 plus dynamic youth advocates across 23 Caribbean countries to co-develop the Young Caribbean Minds Mental Health Toolkit with UNICEF Eastern Caribbean, I've witnessed the impact that youth-led, culturally grounded resources have. This new toolkit can build on that spirit, providing facilitators around the world with a comprehensive, practical guide to support adolescent and youth mental health. And what I love about this UNICEF resource is that it's not just for young people, but it was created with young people in mind. It recognizes that change makers aren't just policy drivers or campaigners, but we're also human beings navigating our own emotional landscapes while trying to create change in the world. This toolkit gives facilitators the framework to support us holistically through activities, conversations, and tools that foster awareness, balance, and healing. I see this toolkit as a global bridge, something that can be adapted to fit a rural classroom in the Pacific, or a youth organization in Latin America, or a mental health workshop in the Caribbean. It's grounded in science, but it speaks to our lived realities. It offers structure, but leaves room for empathy, storytelling, and connection. So, to my fellow young change makers, you don't need to burn out to make a huge difference. And to the facilitators, thank you for choosing to hold space for our healing and not just our voices. Together, let's build a world where resilience is real, but so is rest, safety, and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zaria, for those beautiful, powerful, strong words. It is truly all of our pleasure and privilege to be able to hear from you, to work with you, and just appreciate the time you take to share some of these words, thoughts, reflections with this audience today. We're very grateful. So thank you. Um, and now I'd like to turn the floor over to my colleague, Rachel Mizuno, who will walk us through the materials that we've been talking about today. But just a reminder, please feel free to put questions either for any of our speakers so far, or as we start to go through the materials, feel free to put questions in the chat. I think there might be a Q&A box you could put in the chat or in a Q&A box, and we will try to leave time at the end to be able to answer those questions live. So again, thank you, Zaria, and Rachel, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today. It's quite an honor to share these materials with the world. Thank you, Zaria, for that powerful introduction and for really holding space so intentionally. It's wonderful to see you after being in Barbados together at that first youth action training in the Caribbean. And I can't be just more proud of the work that you continue to do, and all of the young people who've been involved with this work continue to do. As an adult ally to young people, I've really witnessed the energy and creativity and sometimes the emotional burden that change makers carry as they fight for justice, inclusion, and sustainability. So this toolkit is about being there with them and in ways that really build safety, build skills, build capacity, and build community. What will you learn in this training? So these are the objectives of the of the mental health training. And I'm just going to very quickly read off the 6 objectives, and we'll add them to the chat as well. And I'd love for you to be thinking about which of these objectives resonate with you. This is actually one of the activities that we do early on in the training. So identify personal stressors and understand how emotions are linked to stress, as well as recognizing emotions. Learning to apply mechanisms for coping with stress and pressures, so managing that stress. Building resilience by adopting healthy habits and problem-solving skills. Understanding the importance of emotional care and boundaries, and identify when help is needed, so setting boundaries. Practicing communication strategies and expressing emotions and boundaries clearly. So practicing our communication skills and effectively communicating, and fostering supportive relationships and understanding your role in the world. So I've just added them to the chat. And what I'd love for folks to do is take a look at that list. We have so many objectives for this training, but we're able to cover them all. And I think there's a way in which the training is incredibly participatory, and so we're going to test out one of those as well. So go ahead and type into the chat which of those 6 objectives resonates with you. And we'll go forward. Thank you as we start to see those come in. On the next slide, you'll see what and how we'll use, so managing stress. I'm seeing a lot of managing stress. For myself, it's building those healthy boundaries and being able to express my emotions clearly. Yeah, we're starting to see those come in. Thank you for that. All of them, all of them, all of them. So this is just a little example, and you can see on that slide, what and how we would start the training when we do this with young changemakers. All right, thank you. So how to use this training and these resources, some of the basics. So this is a virtual training. It's made for 20 to 30 youth participants. The modules are set in 2 4-hour sessions. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it goes quickly. And because of the participatory nature of this, it really, we spend enough time in small group discussion, large group discussion. The aim is really to build those skills. You need 2 co-facilitators and ideally a tech producer. A safeguarding lead is absolutely required because we want to make sure that the participants are feeling safe and have access to the resources that they need. And ideally, you'd want a mental health professional on call as well, if possible. The facilitators need to be experienced in youth-friendly delivery, trained in safeguarding, and participants really are anyone who's an advocate, an organizer, someone who is part of a school or community group, online change makers, or allies, adult allies. It's really anyone involved in change making, and adults who are their allies that make up the audience of the ideally these the trainings that folks will be having the opportunity to access after today. So how to access those materials. You'll download once the website is launched, and we'll put that into the chat at the end of our time today. You'll download a facilitator's guide, the workbook, and a participant set of materials. So there's a participant workbook, which we'll show you in a moment, a facilitator's guide, and the script. So there's a way that you'll download a copy for yourself to make adjustments, because one of the things that's incredibly important is that these materials have been shaped by youth and practitioners. Obviously, they're coming from a long lineage of UNICEF and partners' work around safeguarding and helping adolescent thrive toolkit, the I Support My Friends peer support work, the youth-led action curriculum, and mental health research and youth consultation. So they come from a really long line of content and lineage, but they can be adapted for all regions. And you know the young people that you're working with best, you know your peers the best. And it's important that we're able to really adapt those materials. So the materials that you have are adaptable, and they're meant to be adapted. All right. We move to the next slide, you'll see the inside contents. All of the questions that you might have about the resources can be found. This is just a brief introduction to the table of contents of the resource and a copy of the cover, so you know where to find things, and we can quickly go to the next slide. As well as, tips for how to really execute virtual training, sample invitation, and a survey. There's lots of ways in which we've really tried to set you up for success and make the process of delivering this training as easy as possible. So if you have tried it, this is how you'll make a copy. And we wanted to make sure that this was clear, because it really is your own unique copy of both the training materials script and the Google Slides. You'll use that along with Zoom to support the training as you move through it. All right, so if anyone, this is a copy of the participant workbook, which is integrated, and I want to, you'll meet Anjali and Jordan in a moment, but a lot of young people have really poured into this resource, and it accompanies the training execution. There's a way in which there are activities because of the participatory nature of the training. Folks are doing some personal work and reflection as well as group discussion. And so the workbook helps aid that effort. All right. If anyone has tried the training, if you've seen it in action or the youth-led action materials, please add an emoji or a reaction into the chat. Let us know how you have found it. And up next, we are really going to hear from people who have made it real. And so these are folks who have been trainers, who participated in this training. And before I turn it back over to Malvika, I just really want to say thank you to the team. It has been an incredible, incredible journey, and a special wave to Mariam on her last day for now. All right, over to you, Malvika.
Thank you
all.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the critical role that you've played in making this resource a reality. This is a resource we really believe in and have so much potential. So up next, we're going to hear from some of our early users of the resource, as well as the co-developers of the participant workbook, so we can hear a little bit more about how folks can engage directly with this resource. To begin with, I would like to invite Aladdin Borja, our MHPSS specialist for the Regional Office for South Asia. Aladdin, as a co-lead facilitator for this training in the Regional Office, would love to hear from you on how you adapted this training and work with young change makers in the region. And maybe if you can walk us through a key lesson from implementing this resource in your region, and any advice for others as they look towards doing the same as well. Aladdin, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to share reflections from my experience as one of the lead facilitators for UNICEF's training manual on supporting the mental health and psychosocial well-being of youth changemakers, a new transformative MHPSS resource, not just for participants, but for facilitators like myself. To make this training more meaningful in our context here in South Asia, we had to adapt it while ensuring fidelity to the purpose of the resource. Here are some examples of how we did that. First is adjusting the agenda to fit the needs of youth change makers. The resource was originally designed for a 2-day, 8-hour interactive experiential training. However, after a series of consultations with our 34 participants, we decided to spread the sessions into 4 2-hour sessions over the course of 2 weeks to fit their availability. As the sessions were delivered after their academic, professional, and youth change-making engagements, this meant that we had to be sensitive to their energy level, attention span, and overall engagement throughout the sessions. Second is tailoring examples and customizing our facilitation strategies. For the problem-solving session, for example, our youth participants had to draw from their diverse lived experiences to identify an issue or problem that they had to solve in that particular session. This resulted in an interesting list that includes day-to-day issues to more complex systemic problems encountered by youth change makers. While all these issues are valid, we had to identify a simpler issue or problem, if you will, such as balancing academic pressure and their youth change-making responsibilities to allow us to demonstrate the steps in problem solving in a more easily digestible manner. The problem-solving session was also designed with an activity for participants to complete on their own in breakout groups, which posed some challenge, as we observed that some groups took a while to progress with the task. The facilitators felt it was necessary to join the groups and offer support, and that's what we did ultimately. Third is the composition of the facilitation team. We were very intentional in composing a unique team of facilitators with diverse background. We had an ADAP associate, youth engagement specialist, health officer, MHPSS specialist with a background in child protection and safeguarding, and a youth co-facilitator. We organized weekly check-ins ahead of the training and ensured debriefings that allowed supportive space for reflection and course correction where necessary. Fourth, and probably the most integral, is youth co-facilitation. The youth co-facilitator brought authenticity, trust, and relatability, and impressed the centrality of youth participation in the delivery of the training. Meanwhile, here are some key lessons I've taken from this journey and some pointers for those preparing to deliver this training in the future. Number one, mental health is foundational to change making. Celebrate youth activism as strength by all means, while at the same time helping youth see that caring for themselves is part of caring for their communities. Number two, adaptation to fit the context strengthens impact. And number three, engage youth co-facilitators meaningfully. When young people lead, their agency is fostered and the results are amplified. Facilitating this training reminded me that change making is not just about impact, it's about endurance. And endurance requires self care. Let's keep building spaces where youth change makers can thrive, not just in what they do, but in who they are. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share our experiences. Back to you, Mal.
Thank you, Aladdin, and for those wonderful insights, and especially for what you just said around engaging youth co-facilitators meaningfully. I think that was a unique aspect of the rollout in Rosa. We hope is replicated as the resource gets implemented more. And it's such a privilege to be joined here today by with Monica Bamba, our youth changemaker and co-facilitator for this resource in the region, whose passion includes mental health and road safety in Nepal. Monica, as a youth changemaker yourself and a youth facilitator for this training, how do you see this resource empowering other young changemakers to integrate mental health considerations into their own initiatives and spaces? Also, what tools or approaches from the resource stood out to you as most useful in other peer-to-peer contexts as well? Would love to hear from you. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Malvika, for passing the floor to me. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and namaste, everyone. I'm Monica Bamma, a youth change maker from South Asia, Nepal, and I have had this amazing opportunity to work with UNICEF Rosa for supporting the mental health and psychosocial well-being for young change makers session back in May. And I'm also actively involved in mental wellness, road safety, and gender equality. So being part of this journey has always meant a lot to me. As a young change maker, we often carry so much expectations, pressure, and sometimes quite pain. So this toolkit reminded me that caring for our minds and heart isn't something extra, it's essential. We can't pour from an empty cup. So, what stood out to me the most was how thoughtful and gentle the toolkit is. It's not about just knowledge, it's about learning how to care. So, the sessions on emotions and coping created space for honesty. They reminded me and my fellow youth peers that it's okay to feel, to struggle, and to ask for support. So, these are the things we don't talk about enough. Learning to reframe negative thoughts with positive gave me new tools to protect my energy and keep showing up for me and my team with hope and more clarity. So, this toolkit doesn't just give information, it builds connection. It builds care for ourselves and extend that care to our teams and communities and our causes. And even more beautifully, it helps us recognize the moral beauty of kindness, the collective strength in shared experiences, and those quite powerful moments of spiritual and emotional clarity. So the wisdom from this toolkit stays with us. It lives in how we lead in our community, how we listen, and how we take care of ourselves and others. So mental wellness is not just part of the work, it's what makes us work more meaningful and more human. So I'm truly grateful for UNICEF and everyone behind this toolkit for reminding us that care and connection aren't just strategies, but they are the heart to change. So thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for those really moving and thoughtful words, and the wonderful leadership that you are advancing in the region as well. Where you said about the toolkit not just being about the knowledge, but creating spaces for young change makers to share and hold space for their experiences is very insightful. And on that note, would love to invite our co-developers for the participant workbook who really thought through how to bridge that knowledge to experience piece so that young change makers have something to take with them after their training as well. So to begin with, I'd like to invite Anjali Singla, who is one of the co-developers of the participant workbook. Anjali, would love to hear from you on what were some of the core principles that you and Jordan had in mind when you were designing this workbook, and how did you ensure that it reflects the realities and needs of young change makers themselves? Over to you, Anjali.
Thank you, Malvika. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So we co-developed the UNICEF Changemaker workbook to be an extension of the training. One of the most important things we focused on was making sure that the workbook truly served young people, but not just as a learning tool, but as a space that offers a sense of ownership, a space that holds capacity for growth as one experiences different events, different contexts in their advocacy journey and their personal life, and do so while not feeling isolated and navigate community building in a safe, meaningful capacity. we also wanted it to reflect the current realities young people are are experiencing. We wanted to name the uncomfortable. We recognize that the real world is not that sanitized, and show that in our workbook. That is why we have tried to make the workbook as a very malleable and adaptable tool to actually support all the different learning styles and reflection styles one might have. To adapt to that, we really looked at accessible language, open-ended prompts, really offering a blueprint as opposed to a guideline that this is how things should be. And we deviated from that and we said, what happens if we offer a map of sorts, and then any user can adapt to it, come back to it later on, see the reflections of the journey they've had, and all of the 6 sort of main spaces Rachel mentioned. Yeah, that's the aim we had with the workbook, and can't wait to see what a lot of our young users think of the resource.
Thank you so much, Anjali. I think those principles definitely shine through in the participant workbook. And Jordan, if I can turn to you, we'd love to hear from you on some of your recommendations on how facilitators and young changemakers can actively use the workbook to deepen learning during as well as after the training, and how you envision the resource to be of use to the different audiences. Over to you, please.
Perfect, thank you. So our biggest recommendation in terms of this workbook is that it's best when it's active. Don't treat it as a static handout, but use it interactively to deepen discussions during the training and especially to follow up after it ends. So specifically during the training for facilitators, we recommend it to use it to guide reflection, to structure activities and help participants really deepen the skills that they get within the trainings. There are a ton of extension exercises, there are a ton of reflection prompts that are really there for you to use. Encourage participants to really engage with it during the training, and there are prompts throughout the training that prompt participants to go to the workbook, but have them mark it up, personalize it, and come back to it again and again and again. It is theirs for their lifetime. After the training, it becomes a tool for follow-up and for growth. There are reflection and practice prompts that are designed to expand on the training and evolve over time, just like young people evolve. And then there are also additional practices that kind of build on the training and allow people to grow. So ultimately, the workbook is a space that is a learning companion, but also kind of a growth tool. It's designed to grow with young people as they move through this changemaker space and kind of reflect throughout that space. Back to you, Mel.
Thank you so much, Jordan, and a huge thanks to all of our speakers and to the regional officers at Asia for leading the charge and implementing this resource in the region, and Jordan, Anjali, and the entire team for finding ways to make this the most meaningful experience it can be for youth changemakers. So thank you for that, and thank you for being part of the session today as well. With that, I will hand it back to Marcy for taking us through the Q&A. Marcy, over to you.
Thank you so much to everyone. I think this gives just a little glimpse of how many colleagues, young people, collaborators, partners worked on these materials. And when you see the actual materials, which we'll share shortly, you'll also see voices of young people from around the world. The number of you who are here today, again, just to emphasize, this has been an incredibly collaborative, multi-year process. And of course, also to acknowledge the original source materials, first for young people, but then also the WHO, UNICEF, Helping Adolescents Thrive, evidence-based package for promotive and preventive adolescent mental health. So now what we'd like to do is try to answer a few of your questions. I'm going to ask my colleagues to pop in if I answer something incomplete, but I'm trying to track the questions, and I'll try to answer or call on someone else to answer. So thank you for your patience if it's a little informal. So first, I just want to remind everyone that this training is intended to be outside of UNICEF. It's intended to be used by you, by others, to take this work and be able to facilitate it with young people themselves. What kind of facilitators what are the profiles are facilitators who can manage this training? That was one of the questions, and it's a great question. We thought a lot about this because we wanted to make this as accessible as possible, but also recognize that there's a level of experience required to be able to work with adolescents and young people, particularly on mental health issues. So we have framed it as, first of all, this would have to be a team delivery. The lead facilitator should have experience facilitating trainings with adolescents and young people that assume some background in understanding adolescent development, safeguarding, etc. So we left that somewhat broad, but strongly recommend that there's a support facilitator, so 2 facilitators, also who has similar training, a safeguarding focal point, and a technology producer. So it would be a team effort. And when you see the guide, we have extensive detail about what each of those roles would look like, what they would need to do, how they would be equipped, and how they would prepare. And then the scripts that you'll also see are a massive many-page script to help you deliver. So the intent is not to read every line, because obviously it needs to be contextualized, but it will hopefully be a very clear guide to help you adapt, but also to address tricky issues that may come up. And then again, with safeguarding, we have a whole section on safeguarding and how to best prepare for this training, including making sure you have referral and support information. Again, recognizing that when you're discussing mental health, there might be greater safeguarding risks than discussing other topics, and to how to be very aware of that potential concern. The next question is, are we going to provide a certificate of completion? So no, UNICEF is not leading this training or certification of this resource. Our intent is to have all these materials be open access so you can use them. Now, when we run some of these trainings, we have offered certificates of completion. That's up to all of you of how you decide to run it. So we don't have a certificate of completion currently in the package, but certainly if that's appropriate in your context, that would be a wonderful addition. Is the toolkit available in languages other than English? So at the moment, no. What we intend to do over the next year or so, we'll put our email address in the chat box. We have piloted the tool for the last few months, but of course, we're very lucky because these materials are sort of organic. So we intend and hope to get feedback from all of you and keep updating it. And then eventually, when we feel the product is at a place that we feel really confident about, move into a phase where we'll translate materials. But I would ask you, a call to all of you, that if you determined in your setting, in your country, to translate the materials, we'd love to get a copy. We can post those materials on our website. But right now, for the next 6 months, UNICEF will not be translating the materials, but 100% acknowledge and support and honor that these need to be available in many more languages, and that's the long-term goal. At the moment, the kit is not disability accessible, but we are also working with our disability colleagues to explore how we can have, similar to language, have the toolkit be accessible to as many as possible. And again, feel free to reach out if this is a priority for you or for your organization, and we'd love to discuss that. I'm just seeing, is it the training and materials for all age groups? So the facilitators would need to be experienced facilitators. I think I mentioned that already. They could be youth facilitators who have experience delivering, but probably more likely will often be adult facilitators who work with adolescents and young people. And then the target group of the training and materials is, we'd say around 15 to 24 is sort of the general age range I would think the content is appropriate for, but this also is a global good. And as you know, it's very difficult to do a global good that covers all potential scenarios in which this would be delivered. So our ask to all of you is to really think, if you're going to use these materials, to think about how the materials would need to be contextualized. We believe that any context, these materials would need to be contextualized, and we provide some tips throughout of where and how to contextualize. So, for example, there might be an exercise that's a global one that our global team included, but there might be something in your context that everyone knows and it might be more relevant. And that's the same with the age group. If you're only training for, let's say, 15-year-olds, you might want to have different language, different tone compared to potentially 24-year-olds. But generally speaking, we developed this to be as accessible for that range of age group. And then I think that's all the questions other than where I can find the materials. I'm just going to pause. Mariam, Naira, colleagues, is there any other questions? I see one more that I will. There's no charge. Thank you for asking a very important question. There's no charge to deliver this training. It's all the materials will be fully available to you. Again, there'll be a very comprehensive facilitator guide talking about different roles, responsibilities, how to do it, how to set up the technology, safeguarding. Then we have the slides that are used during the training. So we already give you a big slide deck to be able to deliver, a script to be able to deliver the training, which again, you can change. When you go on the link, you'll download a copy for you to save so you can change it. And then we have finally the fourth material is the participants workbook that my colleagues Anjali and Jordan mentioned, and that's intended for the young people themselves. So 3 sets of materials for the facilitators to prepare and guide you through this 2-day training. And then the fourth product is the workbook. They are free, they are publicly available, they are for your use and growth. That was our sort of thinking from the beginning, was how to make it as easy as possible to be used in many different contexts by all of you. So with that,
Marcy, I think we had one more question about volunteer opportunities available to work with UNICEF.
Okay. Currently, there are no volunteer opportunities that I'm aware of, but I would invite interested facilitators or practitioners and young people interested in this can join. We have a number of community of practices for young people interested in either both and change making and mental wellness and health. I'm going to ask my colleagues to post those communities of practice on the website, on the link, so you could learn more. That those communities of practice include webinars, knowledge sharing sessions, ways to kind of connect with other young people, change makers around the world, including change makers who are particularly interested in the mental wellness of change makers. And we do post sort of general opportunities. I don't know, some of them might be volunteer, some not, that are not just UNICEF, but we post opportunities about related that young people can access from our partners and from around the world. So there could be some opportunities there. I would encourage you to check it out. It has lots of different materials and other resources for you. Okay. One more question, and then I'll wrap us up and give everyone back a little bit of time. Great question and a great segue. If we implement the training, how can we share the lessons learned with UNICEF and provide feedback? I'm going to ask my colleagues to put our email address in the chat box. Please, please, please. Well, one, if you need support while you implement the training or just want to have a conversation, we can try to make that happen. But 2, it's really important. We'd love to stay in touch, get your feedback. Ideally, we would be able to share and post. If let's say you're in Bolivia and you adapt this for a region in Bolivia, we'd love to see that copy and potentially also share it with others. So that's part of why we would encourage you to also join our communities of practice, which are connected to these materials. So we can continue to learn from you, update the training, and vice versa, that you could continue to learn from other young people and communities implementing these materials around the world. So we will do our best to keep taking the lessons from all of you and encouraging it, or including it into our materials and what we're able to offer. Okay. And with that, I hope that was helpful. Again, feel free to contact us anytime. I'm going to ask my colleagues to please post the materials in the chat box. We didn't do it before because we know that if we posted early in the webinar, it would be hard to listen once you start scrolling through them. So now I'm going to ask my colleagues, thank you, to post the materials, and we'll bring today to a close. Thank you. So before we close, I just really again want to thank all of you broadly for being here, but also for your commitment to supporting the mental health and psychosocial well-being of young changemakers. We hope this session has given you a good understanding of how these materials and guides, the slides, the participant workbook, everything you can look through now can be a valuable resource in your work. The link to the resources are in the chat. Please, we invite you to explore the materials, adapt them to your context, share them with your networks, just really share them wide, and then continue to share them back with us as you're able, how they've been used, and join our communities where we'll talk about this more. Again, a thank you to our speakers, our contributors, our organizers, everyone behind the scenes, and thank you again for being here today. And then finally, we will send a follow-up email to all of you who joined today. We'll include the link to the resource. We'll include a recording to the webinar, which you're welcome to share. We'll also share some information about a few open sessions our UNICEF team will have. And these sessions will be about, if you're interested in facilitating and have more casual questions and just want to meet with some of us who, and really our expert facilitator team, not me, who know how to really facilitate, and some of our mental health colleagues will have informal sessions where you can come and just chat with them and ask questions. So in the email follow-up we'll send out after, we'll share some of that information so you could have a deeper dive if this is of interest to you and you want some questions. So we will send that email out within the next week. And then otherwise, we'll say thank you. Check out our websites. And until next time, please take care. Please continue supporting yourself, your mental health, and your resilience, and continue supporting all the young people, not just in what they do, but in how they feel while they are doing it. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.